This is the creator stage, so I hope you're feeling creative. I'm going to introduce you to 3 women who are all about that audio. The first is Kristen Meinzer. She is the director of nonfiction programming at Panoply Media. She is also the co-host of 2 podcasts, By the Book and my personal favorite, When Meghan Met Harry. But first, guys, we're going to talk to 2 Betches, also known as Jordana Abraham and Aleen Kuperman. Betches, right over there. Betches is actually the name of their media company, which creates signature viral content for women. We have a little bit of a treat. First, we're going to start with a live episode of their podcast, Betch Slapped. So, please welcome to the stage Jordana and Aleen, and get ready to be Betch Slapped.
Hi, everyone. We've never recorded this podcast live, so excuse us being nervous, but okay, should we just, and excited? Yes. Okay, so basically this podcast, it's called Betch Slapped. It's our first podcast that we ever launched. We have now 6 podcasts, so we're excited to do this one. Yeah, okay. So we'll just start as if we're really recording and no one's here, but you guys are all here. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Betch Slapped. I'm Aleen.
And I'm Jordana.
And so today we're doing a live podcast for everybody who's listening in at home in front of a lot of women. But this is amazing. So this podcast, as everybody knows, it's about pop culture, it's about friendships, and just all fun stuff. So today we wanted to talk about the Kardashians because the new season just started, and it's very dramatic.
Yes.
Okay.
I watched for the first time. I've never really watched, but Aleen told me to watch, and I watched the first episode of this season of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and it was something.
Yeah. What did you? I watch it all the time. You don't watch it.
I really loved the fact that they were doing the whole theme of the episode is that Kim wants to organize this Christmas card.
The Christmas card,
and she's trying to get everyone involved from all their busy schedules or whatever, which starts a fight between her and Kourtney.
Yeah.
My favorite part was watching Kendall do the sexy photo shoot for the Christmas card by herself against people.
I knew that Christmas card was so weird when it came out. They were everybody was speculating that Kylie, with her pregnant Kylie, was going to come out on the last day. Remember that?
Yeah, where was Kylie?
She was pregnant. She wasn't doing the Christmas
filming?
card. No.
At all?
She wasn't in it.
She's not in the whole season?
Rob wasn't in it. No, I think Kylie's in the season. It's just not in the Christmas card.
Okay.
So anyway, it was so awkward. I agree. The Kendall thing was ridiculous.
It was so funny because she's doing her intense model poses. I think of family Christmas cards as cheesy, everyone wears something stupid.
And they're all
not everyone looks so hot.
They're all braless, posing. It was just really funny. But what are your thoughts on Kourtney Kardashian? Because she seems to be the quote unquote villain,
right.
Which is crazy because she's never emoted in her life, and all of a sudden she's hysterically crying.
She definitely seems like she's going through some stuff.
Yeah.
Which was actually interesting because news broke yesterday of her breakup with her boyfriend.
Right. When I was watching the show, I was thinking, what would her boyfriend think, seeing that she has always said that she and Scott are going to be together forever.
Has she always said that?
That's what she said on the show.
Okay.
So, and then they broke up.
Well, maybe he's not interested in something long term.
I don't know. She's probably having a midlife crisis a little bit. Doesn't want to be famous. I don't know.
What's up with Scott?
Scott seems to be dating Sophia Richie, and things are great. I don't know.
Apparently. Whose significant other is younger?
They might be the same age, or Yoon's is younger. I don't actually know. We should Google that.
We should. When we have our phones we would normally.
We normally have our phones. Do you want to do some questions?
Yeah,
some user questions. Yeah.
Let's do an email.
Okay. So we've had people, just for everyone in the audience, we've had people email us since 2011 for advice. And so on this podcast, we answer a lot of questions. So
yes, and recently we've been focusing a lot on career questions because we have a book coming out in October. It's called When's Happy Hour, and it focuses on how to build your career and how to sort of succeed at your job. Everything from perfecting your resume to starting your own company?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll read the first question. Hey, Betches. I'm a 21-year-old about to start my senior year of college. My mom and I have started to have a pretty strained relationship because she's always been kind of controlling. And for most of my life, I just kind of have gone along with it. I feel smothered. For example, in high school, one time she stole my homecoming dress because I didn't want to apply to one summer program. I recently had a small skin infection and she yelled at me if I didn't rub some ointment on it, even though I didn't think it was best for me. She constantly uses threats so that I would do what she wants. She's also started to say that I'm ungrateful that my parents have paid for my college. She claims that she's always had my best interest at heart, and is doing the right thing, but it feels like she just gives me no option and gets mad when I don't follow her to every whim. I feel like she's just stressed that I'm not gonna find a job or anything, and it will reflect poorly on her. Recently, she said that I should get a career coach before the fall semester starts so that I can get a job. But I don't want to because I want to try it on my own for once in my life. She criticized me for taking a babysitting job, but I did it so that I could start making my own money, and she couldn't control me with it. I want to be the one in control, and I don't want to have a career coach this early on. How do I stand up to her and show her that she doesn't need to constantly try to find the best path for me, and that I'm an adult who can make my own decisions? Thanks, early career Betch. Can you relate to this?
I can relate to my mother trying to get me to do things that I don't want to do to fit her needs. Right. I think our moms are actually both OBGYNs, so they're high-powered career women. And they've definitely put their own pressure on us to do various things. So I think that and a lot of the time I feel like if you're not sure, sometimes you can feel like they're doing it for them, not for you, which is a very frustrating
It's very
feeling.
frustrating, yeah. No, I mean, I was pre-med going all the way through college before I started Betches. So telling my mom that I'm gonna do something called Betches was a tough conversation.
Right.
But I think that I think this girl has something where she, the last few sentences, she says, I want to be one in control, and I don't want to have a career coach early on. You don't need a career coach when you have never had a career before. You're still in college, figure it out. You still have time to take classes and learn things. Mm-hmm. So I think
she should just tell her mom, listen, thanks so much for all your help and everything you've done for me. I really appreciate it, because narcissistic moms love to hear that. And then be but I think I can handle this on my own. I'd appreciate it if you gave me the space to kind of figure this out on my own. And if I need your help, I know you're there, I'll ask you.
I have this feeling that her mom won't listen to her.
I have a feeling
she's going to be I don't know what you're talking about. I've had my headphones in this whole time.
Right.
I think that probably the best path is to make your own money, and then your mom can't say anything to control you. Because when she starts holding money over you, that's rough. It's really rough.
I've had my mom do that before.
Yes,
it's very
same.
unpleasant. The only way out is to not depend on them.
Yeah.
Not to get too into it.
Well, if anybody wants their questions answered, email us slapped@betches.com. Do you want to do the next question?
We'll do another email.
Yeah.
Dear Betches, love the podcast. I'm interested in your opinion on a problem I'm having at work. My crazy boss was recently fired. Yay. And our team now reports to a man who is pretty new to the company with no knowledge of our roles. Since the change, another woman on my team has been telling the entire department, including my new boss, that she's now in charge of what I do. It's really shocking because our roles have literally never overlapped. It would be like a marketing person suddenly declaring she's head of sales. She's a little above me, but with a very different role, and has been with the company twice as long, so I don't feel like I can directly call her out. I also don't want to come off as the girl with drama to my new boss. For a few months now, I've been letting my work do the talking, and I think it's showing. When our boss asks for information, I'm the one with the answers. He's even mentioned that he doesn't understand why there's overlap between our jobs, and that he'd be determining separate job descriptions for the two of us soon. In the meantime, she's constantly calling me for info and asking me to forward her everything I have. While I don't want to flat out say no, I don't want her presenting this to our boss as her own work, which she's tried to do. Is it okay to tell her that I'm not comfortable providing her with more info until our boss gives us final word on our roles? If she doesn't like her current job, that's fine, but that doesn't mean she can swoop in and take mine. Appreciate any insights, tips. Thanks.
Yeah, I feel like this happens a lot in the workplace where people just try to take advantage of something and then take control over other people under them to show that they have some sort of authority. And it really sucks to be the victim of that. I think for this girl, I think that she needs to sort of keep letting her work speak for her and not get involved in the drama.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
No, I agree with that. That's usually our advice whenever
Yeah.
anyone kind of comes to us with like a interpersonal issue, is to sort of just like do the best job that you can. But in terms of like, does she have to keep sending?
Right.
Does she have to keep sending her stuff?
I think there's ways to say like I'm
say
still
no without
working
saying
on
no?
I'm still working on it. My plan with the boss is to send it to him on this Friday. Let me know if you've spoken to him or her, if I should do something otherwise. Like sort of change the narrative, change the direction of who's actually the boss. And I think that you might be successful. It's very stressful though to have like
someone
a personal,
taking credit for you.
Even just to have a personal strain in at work when work itself is stressful. I think that's
especially because you have to see these people like every day. Like if you get into a fight with your friend, you can like let yourselves cool off and not see each other for like a week or two.
Yeah.
You get into a fight with someone you work with, they're like there all the time, which is why you shouldn't date someone you work with.
Definitely.
But you can read more about that again in our book that's coming out this October.
Yeah.
When's happy hour? Work hard so you can hardly work.
Lots of books.
Let's play some games.
Yes, let's do some games.
Okay.
Okay. So we usually play Would You Rathers, BFF, Party with Chuck. Okay, so you asked me one.
All right. Would you rather only drink water with every meal or only drink wine with every meal? Is breakfast included?
All I can drink is water, or all I can with breakfast?
With every meal.
Wine.
Seriously?
Wine, yeah, wine. I mean, I'm close to it now, so. Yeah. But what about
That's
you?
Very funny. I feel like I'd be like perpetually kind of like
Wasted?
drunk or hungover.
Yeah, right. It's dehydrating for sure. Which is the opposite of drinking water all the time.
Water all the time is kind of boring.
Exactly.
It's tough.
Can you drink wine at other times in your life?
Yeah, but you also have to have it with every meal. No water provided.
I'm just gonna stick with wine because it's fun to be fun.
That's fair.
Okay.
I think realistically, I'd probably go with water. But,
Okay. Next one. Ready, Jordana?
I'm ready.
Would you no, BFF, Party with, or Chuck, Kim Kardashian, Meghan Markle, or Kris Jenner? Momager.
I think I'm gonna party with Kris.
Yeah, I agree with
I'm
you.
gonna party with Kris Jenner. Kim doesn't seem like she like.
Kim doesn't drink.
is
She's
like
like
laid
sort
back
of
enough to do that.
a wet blanket. She's constantly yelling at you that you don't work enough.
Right? Oh yeah.
I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, that was going back to that episode. That was like.
Aggressive.
That was so mean, but I think that it's funny because I feel like Courtney was pretending that she was the most offended about the fact that she said she didn't work, but really she was most offended that she said that no one cares about what she looks like.
Yeah. Right, and then the makeup artist goes, "You're gorgeous." She goes, "I know, obviously." Anyway, okay, so who are you gonna?
I'm gonna get rid of. I think I might have to get rid of Kim and be friends with Meghan.
Yeah. I think maybe also. I just really want to know what goes on in the royal family.
Right.
And
as
like,
your best friend.
As her best friend, that's the in. Yeah. I agree with you.
I wonder if she tells her best friends or not.
She does.
She does?
They're like from
Or are
Suits.
they like, I feel like they have extreme confidentiality.
I don't know.
Contracts.
No, I don't know.
She would like tell you and make you sign a contract.
Yeah, right.
They probably both would though.
No, but her friends were at her wedding and they were mostly from the show Suits.
Oh. It's like The Bachelor. Only friends with each other.
Yeah, okay. Last one.
Would you rather party hard for 5 nights a week every week or be on a juice cleanse 5 days a week every week?
Okay, like I can drink wine, but I cannot party hard every day.
5 days a week.
5
like
days.
we're back in college.
Oh, but food is so good. This is crap. Oh, but 2 days. I can
You have
still
2
eat.
days to do whatever you want.
Okay, I'm gonna choose the juice cleanse, even though juice cleanses aren't that good for you. But okay. But neither is partying hard.
Because it would give you like, you'd be like super fit, although you might not.
You might not be
You'd probably be
super-
malnourished
Yes.
and like angry.
Yeah.
You're gonna be angry if you're like hungover all the time too.
That's true, exactly. And I'll be like,
It's all about balance.
it's all about balance. Clearly, this question isn't about that.
I think I'd pick the 5 nights a week partying just because we used to do that.
Yeah, but the key word there is used to.
When
Definitely
we were
can't
younger.
doing that anymore.
Yeah, we might be too old for that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the episode. This is a
Thank you
a little sneak peek into our show. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
And yeah, so Kristen, come. I think we need a chair.
Jordana, Aleen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is hard to put on a live show when there's so much noise going on. I've done it before, but you guys killed it.
Thank you
so much for
that
doing
was very fun.
And now we're just going to have a conversation about the art and craft of podcasting. In the introduction, you may recall that I am the director of a podcasting company called Panoply, and I'm also the host. Hey, thanks. I'm also the host of 2 podcasts. One is called When Meghan Met Harry, a Royal Wedding Cast. So I love that you guys had a would you rather or a BFF question about being best friends with Meghan. I would be best friends with her in a second. And then the other show I co-host is called By the Book, which is a reality show in podcast form where my co-host and I live by the rules of different self-help books, record ourselves at home, in our marriages, at work, so you can hear about how each of these books ruin our lives. So those are the 2 shows I host. And so all of us have a lot of experience with podcasting, launching shows, hosting shows. And so I just want to start off talking with these 2 great podcasters about why they started their show, because every single person I talk to these days says, I want to start a podcast. But I think the most important question to ask each person is, why do you want to do it? And number 1, I say, if the answer is because everybody's doing it, that's not the right answer. So think about why you want to start a podcast. In my case, I wanted to look through the lens of pop culture and talk about bigger issues like feminism, gender, race, and class. And ladies, I want to know about why you decided to start not just 1 podcast, but half a dozen podcasts that you guys have now.
For just in general, if you want to start a podcast, I feel like it definitely shouldn't be because everybody's doing it. I think that like if you have a unique perspective or you have some unique opinion that you want to discuss, and that you think that there's an audience for you, you think people will listen and be intrigued and tune in for episodes 5 to 50, I think that's when you could give it a try. But if it's just for the sake of it, and you have nothing to talk about, it's not going to be successful.
Right, I agree. I think you need to have something to say that not everyone is saying, something sort of unique you're bringing there into the podcast world. Although I know people who have podcasts and they're just for their friend group. It's like an opportunity for them to kind of like get together and talk about stuff, and their other friends can sort of listen to these conversations. And it's not they don't think it's going to get huge. It's really just for them, which is I think a really fun way to go about it too. But if you're looking for like mass appeal, then yeah, we definitely want like a unique perspective.
Yeah, and you guys entered into the space in such an interesting way because you already had a hugely successful media empire with Betches. Some people are like your friends who just do a round table because it's getting together with girlfriends. Some people, like me, work with networks. I have done shows with WNYC, with Panoply. But you guys already had a very successful, established brand. Can you walk us through how you went from blogging, which is for the eyes, to podcasting for the ears? That seems like a big jump to me.
We started our blog in 2011 before even Instagram was a thing. So that was definitely for the eyes and just to share on like Facebook before there was an algorithm. But then we quickly moved on to Instagram, and what we've done through platform and after platform is just kept our voice consistent. So the next best thing for us, we were like, why don't we do podcasts? Because we don't have personally time to write all these articles now. We have like an amazing team to do that on our website. So why don't we just start some podcasts and like use our opinions, use our voice in this new format? And so far we've been pretty successful, and a big audience in podcasts that's been growing and growing are female millennials. And I think that's partially due to the fact that there has been a growing amount of female hosts. So I think they're going up hand in hand. So I think like that's really exciting to us. So we're we love starting new podcasts. We're starting a true crime podcast coming out soon. So lots of big stuff.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I'll listen to that.
Yeah.
Now, I just need to get to a big, ugly spot in a podcaster's life, which is the mistakes, the embarrassments, the list of things that I've done wrong over the years in podcasting. The list is so long. You could make an encyclopedia-sized book of it. I just think about the early days, not even knowing how to talk directly into a microphone, not having any structure for the show. So you may notice that Betch Slapped, they have a specific structure. They talk about a current event or pop culture thing that's happening, then they get to listener questions, then they get to games, and that's every single episode. So they had a structure. When I started out with the first podcast I ever hosted, there was no structure. They knew how long to have each podcast. I think one of the big mistakes early on that I made was my co-hosts and I would just talk and talk and talk and talk, and suddenly it was over an hour long with no structure, and then publish, and we presumed people would want to just listen to two people they didn't know babbling without any structure for an hour. So I made a lot of mistakes. I would love to hear you guys talk about some of the mistakes that you guys have made over the years with your podcasts.
Sure. It's funny, I feel like our mistakes like run the whole gamut of like everything from like an episode released where the sound quality wasn't amazing and people were like, or one person was much louder than the other one, and kind of learning how to like fine tune that. We used to record our podcast at a like external like comedy like studio. And then we decided to really invest and grow our podcast. We created a podcast room in our office when we moved to an office. So it was kind of also just like figuring out how, because we started off with them being produced by someone else to doing it ourselves and figuring out like all the creative elements that go into a successful podcast, be it like sound effects that actually work and are engaging and are funny, to making sure we don't talk over each other, say the word like too much, which we probably continue to do if you guys are listening carefully. And really just kind of like taking user feedback. We read all of our reviews like constantly and see what any running themes are, and we always try to address them and work to improve. It's like a never-ending process of improvement.
And I also think in the beginning we were very shy to ask people to rate or to review, to ask people to subscribe, because just promoting ourselves doesn't come naturally to us. But over the years, I guess, we've learned that it's really, really important. Jordana co-hosts a podcast called You Up with Jared Freed. He's a comedian, and he has no shame. He's just screaming in the microphone to rate, review, subscribe, and we're like,
right,
maybe we should do the same. So that was a big learning tool for us, and it's also been highly successful.
I agree, and I think that like the big part of maybe our hesitancy to do that is the fact that we are women.
Yeah.
And that you feel uncomfortable, like it's almost because it seems like you're like bragging, and the idea is that you're supposed to be modest, and so like when you're asking someone to promote you or rate, review, and subscribe or do something like that, it seems like it's like unnatural. It might come more naturally to men, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely made that mistake. The first podcast I hosted for 6 years, and I think I said maybe 3 times in those entire 6 years, rate us and review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. I was so scared to do it. I thought I sounded like I was boasting, or that I was being self-promotional, or I was asking too much of my listeners. But it's not asking too much of your listeners. If you're gonna host a show, don't be afraid to have them if they like the show. If they don't like the show, don't have them do anything. But if they like the show, have them rate and review it. It helps other listeners find the show. All the magic of the Apple algorithms means more people will find your show, and it's good for you. But since we're talking about this, I always love to talk about bad reviews. Have you guys ever had any that have really made you go, ugh?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Well, it's funny because I kept getting this criticism on one that I was on, that I didn't know the difference between how to say women and woman, and then I'd never even thought about it. I'm like 28 years old. I've never thought about the way that I've said either of those words. And so I asked around. I'm like, how do you say this word? I actually asked like Sammy and Aleen about how like if I was saying it incorrectly, and like I figured out that I was saying it wrong, but I had been saying it for so many months like that, and people were commenting in the reviews, so it was like a little embarrassing, but it's kind of funny because you fix it and then you're
the most important thing is to constantly just improve based on like Jordana said, if it's just one comment, it could be just a fluke. But if there's a theme, there's like 4 that sort of say the same thing. Like when we started, I co-host a podcast with our third co-founder who's not here, Sammy. It's called Diet Starts Tomorrow. And in the very beginning, we kept getting feedback that we were talking over each other like crazy. Because in real life, we talk over each other all the time. But so we got the message, we got the hint, not such a subtle hint, and we fixed it completely. And now all the reviews are so positive. So it's really important to listen to your audience. They're the ones who are listening. They're the ones who are making your numbers what they are.
Yeah, and there are always going to be those listeners out there who are just grumpy and are going to say crap things to you, and you have to dismiss those people.
Right.
Some people just hate women's voices. It's a sad fact that podcasting, the top 100 shows on the iTunes charts, over 2/3 of them have a white male host, just like the American population. So there are going to be people who don't like to hear women's voices and who will criticize women's voices, and that's one reason why, as women, we should try extra hard to get out there and make sure our voices are heard, because our voices do matter, and there's nothing wrong with how we talk. And so some of those criticisms we should take with a grain of salt, and some of them constructively, like, well, I could pronounce this word better, or I could not talk over my co-host.
Right.
But the feedback is also a gift, because I think that means you have listeners.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
And a question I have that every person who's ever wanted to start a podcast has wondered is, how do I get the listeners? Because podcasting is an opt-in technology. It's not like you just turn on the TV and there it is, or you turn on the radio and there it is. People have to deliberately decide to go to you, to listen to you, to hit play on you, and then to not hit stop on you once they listen for a minute or 2 minutes and they're like, this isn't for me. So how do you get listeners? And I'd love to know what you guys have done, because you don't just have listeners for this show that you just did a live taping of. You have listeners for all of your shows. So what was your secret?
I think in some ways, we're lucky that we did start our podcast after we already had our established brand, and we have really big following on things like Instagram, where we were able to sort of push them and get that initial hook, which is a very useful tool, obviously, if you have like a large marketing tool like Instagram that already has a lot of followers to push it, is helpful. But also, like you said, like encouraging people to rate, review, and subscribe, to tell their friends, like to not be afraid to mention those things is also really important.
Yeah, and despite having this large audience, we're finding that the most people find our podcast from their friends, like word of mouth, because like that's the best marketing tool. You hear it from your friend, you trust them, and you do whatever they tell you to do. So I think that as long as what you're doing is quality content, the content's really good, and it's shareable, I think it should organically multiply in your audience. But that said, you should have some form of a marketing plan if you don't have an audience before then. If your audience is on Instagram, if your audience is on Snapchat, if your main audience should be on Facebook, decipher that and attack it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing who your listener is. I mean, this is one of the big questions also when people start podcasts. A lot of them don't think about, who is this show for? Is it just for me and my girlfriends who want to have kind of a support group where we record ourselves? Is it for, this audience of people who are living with a certain condition or an illness? Is it for this population that's very small? Is it for a giant population of people who are outside the US? Just think about who your audience is, and then it's easier to reach them. So one thing we've done with Buy the Book is our listeners, in order for them to join our Facebook community, which is many thousands of people who talk to each other every day, in order to join the community, you have to answer 3 questions, partly to prove you're not a robot, but partly because it helps us market the show. One of the questions we ask is, what are the other shows you listen to besides us? And then we go to those shows and we ask, do you want to be a guest on our show, or should we be a guest on yours? So we do guest swapping, or we say, would you like to run a promotion on our show and we'll run a promotion on yours, vice versa. There are great ways to use your listeners to help spread the word. Take what your listeners give you. And then also, one thing that you guys do that is so outstanding, that every show should do, is have a listener engagement component in your show. The fact that you are dispensing advice in your show means that the listeners have a hyper high level of engagement. They're not just sitting at home, they're listening and they're thinking, oh, I really want to ask these two something. And then they're taking the time to actually write to you. And so if you have a way for listeners to actually reach you, and then when the listeners hear their name on the show, oh my God, Aleen just said my name. Oh my God, Aleen just said my name. Aleen just answered my question. That's my question. That's me. My mom is the one who's being horrible. So it really makes people feel more engaged, and it also makes the listeners more likely to tell other people.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
So anything you can do to, up your listener engagement, either through components on the show like that, or just by asking your listeners questions like, what else are they listening to? It can make a huge difference as far as reaching bigger audiences. But you guys also talked about like possibly having a marketing plan. You guys, do you guys have a marketing team that helps you with everything?
Yeah, for sure. We have an amazing team at Betch's. It's not that big. We have 16 full-time employees, and then we have like our freelance and our writers. But yeah, I mean, we're constantly thinking of ways to improve our the promotion. We always want to switch it up so it doesn't feel dry, it doesn't feel repetitive. That's also really important. Just come up with creative ways of pushing what you want to push. So like if you have a great conversation in the last podcast, don't just send out to everyone that, oh, you have a podcast. No, talk about the conversation you just had. So really try to relate to the audience or your listeners, and market to them that way.
Yeah. I would like to ask a controversial question.
Okay.
How do you feel about newsletters? People seem very divided on this question about newsletters or not newsletters as far as podcasts go. Do you think it's good to send out newsletters to your listeners or not?
We have newsletters that we send out. We have like a daily news email called The Sup that we send out anyways. So like we do have people who enjoy them. Some people don't like emails or to be bombarded or things like that. But what we like to do is not necessarily do a newsletter for every episode, but if there's a really great guest or there's something we're really excited about, we'll send it out so the person doesn't just assume it's like a daily thing.
Yeah.
And they'll know it's like special when they get an email about it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good approach to it, so that it doesn't become just dead noise coming into your inbox.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Then they know. And who's your favorite guest been so far?
What do you think?
On our You Up podcast, we had Whitney Cummings, who was really funny and really cool, and she gave really good relationship advice.
Yeah.
And I know Diet Starts Tomorrow had Vinny from Jersey Shore, who
We
I
had
was
Vinny
like
from
I was excited about.
Yeah, we had Dr. Oz. That was really cool.
Yeah.
A lot of really big names. We had
and Andy Cohen, I
Andy
forgot.
Cohen.
Yeah, he was
We had Brooklyn
that was
Decker who's
awesome.
here on this Betch Slapped. We've had we had Andy Dorfman from The Bachelorette, guest on the U Up Live episode at the Comedy Cellar. That was awesome. We've had a lot of really fun guests. It's hard to just choose one
Yeah.
because they're all like fun for different reasons.
If you're a good host, the guests are good. That's how I feel about it. So obviously, podcasting is very different from blogging or Instagramming. Have you found that you've learned something from one realm that helps you with podcasting, or have you learned something from podcasting that's helped you do better in the other areas?
Sure. I think like something we've learned from Instagram, which was great to roll over to podcasting, is the fact that you have to be consistent. So a good podcast is up every single week at the same time, so people know exactly what to expect and when to expect it. Just like with Instagram, like you can't have an Instagram and decide to post whenever you feel like it. You kind of have to have consistent content so people keep coming back. So that's definitely something we learned, is consistency is key for podcasts, just like with our other channels.
Yeah. And again, like just quality content. Don't just put out stuff to put it out. Like really think about it, prepare, have it produced, like create an outline, make sure you have good editing. It's sort of the same, like if you have quality content on Instagram, it's just a different medium. So that's really what we learned. People like stuff that's relatable. They really just like something that they can share with their friends and something to talk about when they're out together. So that's what we try to do across all of our platforms.
Yeah, and just to echo what you were saying about the consistent schedule, listeners will notice if they're used to your show being the friend that shows up at noon every Thursday and it's not up at noon, some people by 1 o'clock will be upset about it. And just to give you an example, one of the shows that is made in-house where I work is Slate's Political Gab Fest. And I believe it was about an hour late that somebody wrote in very upset, and his name was Stephen Colbert, and he said, I need to have my Slate Political Gab Fest, and it's not up yet. So you never know who's gonna write in and notice if your show does not go up in time.
True.
So try to be consistent about it. And I think the latest I ever put up a show was maybe 12 hours late, and I did that a few times in the first show that I hosted, but try to do it consistently. And I would also say, don't bite off more than you can chew. So, I mean, you guys, went in and then expanded, but don't start off like these guys and just like, I'm gonna make 6 shows off the bat, because they can be a lot more work than you might expect.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we didn't start, we just started with Betch Slapped, and we used this one to learn about how to podcast. Like in the beginning, we had no idea what we were doing, but we just knew that it could be like a fun platform for our brand. So we learned, and then we expanded based on like different content verticals. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, with what time is left here, I really just want to focus on some concrete takeaways to have anybody here who wants to start a podcast be able to go out into the world ready to do it. And so I just want to ask you guys for some of your top tips or top lessons that you want to impart on all these brilliant women out here about podcasting.
Yeah. Well, sound quality is really important. So definitely listen back to your podcast. And it's very difficult to hear your own voice. It's hard to listen, even though you were just there in an hour, you were sitting there for an hour recording something, it's very difficult to spend the next hour hearing it back, criticizing yourself. But do it because it's so important. You get to hear mistakes because it's your product. You're the most perfectionist that you can be. Like a producer isn't gonna catch things that you will. So listen back to it. The sound quality should be, again, consistent every single episode. I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
Right, and then like listener feedback, like we were talking about the whole time, is so important because like you may think you're doing everything right, but you could definitely be wrong, and they'll tell you. Which is the nice thing about reviews. So yeah, just I think just being open-minded and being open to kind of being flexible about something, being able to take criticism well is really important as well.
Yeah.
I love how you guys are so open to criticism. I have to say that in my life, there's been some criticism where I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? You can just go to, some of the criticism I'm not, you guys are so cool with it.
We've had those moments too, though.
We're acting cool. I mean, criticism is never like that easy. I mean, it just depends on, we've been at this for a while, not just podcasting, but like people have been saying things about us for a long time, but the way that we look at it is if someone has something to say, that means you're doing something right. Like if no one's talking about you, then you have a problem. But even if it's positive or negative, we find that kind of
it's flattering just to get people engaged.
Yeah.
Yes. So some additional tips I have, in addition to always asking, why do I want to make this podcast? And it could be any number of reasons. There's no right or wrong answer except everybody's doing it. That is the wrong answer. But why do I want to start a podcast? Who is it for? Think very hard about who it's for. Imagine the typical person, where they're listening. How old are they? Where do they live? Are they married? Are they single? Are they gay? Are they straight? Are they a person of color? Think about who your listener is. And as far as, to go back to the why question, why do I want to start a podcast? Think about why this medium will serve you better than, let's say, a blog or an Instagram feed or sculpture or painting or writing or any other way of expressing yourself. Think about why a podcast. Consider both those questions. And then another tip I have for everybody is be yourself. I think a lot of people listen to podcasts and they think, oh, I should sound like the guys on Radio Lab, or I should sound like Ira Glass on This American Life, or I should sound like Oprah. And I just want to say, you shouldn't sound like any of them. You should only sound like yourself. There is only one of you, and you are a gift, and your voice is a gift, and you are perfect the way you are. So don't try to imitate anybody else, because I can say, as somebody who looks at outside pitches from people who have podcasts all the time, a lot of them are trying to imitate someone else, and you can hear it. You can hear how they don't sound genuine. You can hear how they sound stiff. So I highly encourage you to not be scared of your own voice, even though it's horrible to listen to. As Aleen was saying, especially the first few times, or maybe forever, when you hear your voice on tape, it's like, oh, what is that horrible grating sound? And it's your own voice. But just stick to your own voice and don't imitate anyone else. Listeners can tell if you're imitating someone else or if you're being yourself. So those are my 3 biggest tips as far as going into podcasting and being the best that you can be, and you'll all kill at it. It'll be great.
Yeah.
So I also want to ask a little bit more about what exciting things Betches has going forward, not just podcasting, but overall, what exciting things do you have coming up? This true crime podcast in particular, I just want to hear more about that. So what's that about?
So it's a true crime podcast. Every episode is our two hosts sort of talk about a different, either it's a conspiracy, a scam, like Fire Festival is one episode, or an actual like unsolved mystery. And we're gonna release it sort of like a season because everybody loves to binge true crime. So I'm really excited about it. I've heard some episodes so far and it's really, really good. So that should be coming out soon. I'm not exactly sure when, maybe September, or no, October for Halloween, October. Oops, sorry. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, as we've discussed, we also have our book coming out in October. This is our third book. We're really excited about it. It's all about how to build your career.
Yeah, and we're releasing a mini podcast around that. So we're interviewing like 5 different entrepreneurs or people who sort of parallel the book chapters and the content. So that's also going to be called When's Happy Hour, but the podcast.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
That sounds great. As far as the true crime podcast, can you give us any spoilers about like what things will be covered, or are you keeping that hush hush right now?
No, like I said, there's going to be an episode about Fire Festival, which is so fun to listen to. Because also we have we had Fire Festival pitch us to be included on that. We were like, no, this doesn't sound right. So I think that I'm trying to remember what other ones, but I think that's one of the first episodes. Yeah, but you just have to listen and wait and see.
Oh, that's great. And true crime is such a very popular genre right now. I'm sure people will completely eat that up.
Conspiracy theories, yeah.
Conspiracy
theories. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like the heyday of conspiracy theories right now. Well, thank you to everybody who came out today. A huge thanks again to the Betches. Oh my God. Thank you for putting on a live show for us.
Thank you.